You also cut on expenditure. Again, in the same interview, he's telling them we're going to borrow 1 trillion shillings if the finance bill doesn't go through. Now you ask yourself, what kind of chief executive officer do we have for the country? That is why these people are going this way, because the only way a president or Rais and Tolewa is either he resigns or the question of impeachment or by of him being found mentally unfit to hold this office. And those other particular ways are constitutionally given, that particular function is given to the National Assembly, and these young boys do not have any trust and faith in our parliamentarians. That is now, according to them, the only way or the only pressure that they can do is to force him to vacate that office. And if he cannot do that, let him come out and tell them, guys, I cannot leave this office for now. Give me time. That's the only way. But now for me, I come from, I live around Kilesha police station. All my roads were closed because I think there is a protection around State House. That is not how the country should be governed. You know, you actually escalating the situation. It's tension over tension. We should not suffer just because you think someone is coming for you around State House and you make everyone go around, and you are the same person who is responsible for the safety and security of Kenyans according to the Constitution. So he's the one who came for it. We did not take this to him. He went to Kenyans, asked for the vote. So if he is finding it difficult, it's easy. The Constitution allows someone to resign so that he can now pass on that particular baton. The people of Kenya can now think of who is the next person. But trust me, what we have seen for the last 2 weeks is a revolution that has never been witnessed before. It is tribeless, and it doesn't look at a certain political class. It is not targeting certain tribes or clans. It is one on these young boys. If you look at them, you may find every type of tribe in that particular group of boys. So these are the people. This is the time for him to now come out and address the real-time issue. It is not about locking yourself in State House. By the way, if you look at the media houses of East Africa, what's happening in Uganda, Tanzania, all of them, they're having a feature on what's happening in Kenya, because this is a very important and democratic country in terms of the history of the northern, on the northern East African side. It is one that has one of the best constitutions. So it should not be one whereby the whole international and local news are now focusing on people being butchered in front of our parliament. That is not where we need to find ourselves in. And worst of all is that our president may not, or he is not even, we're not seeing the human side of him. He doesn't even seem to be apologetic to these people. He is not even empathetic. That is what is now becoming, that's what is adding on to the fear. So, going forward, we do not want to lose more lives. The police of our country are not trained enough to handle protests the way they are doing. They simply know how to injure, damage, and even kill. And some of them actually have been stealing public property. I mean private property. Some of them, there were those particular footages. So what I'll say is this. In as much as this is a fair and democratic right, on the flip side, we all agree that there are those criminal gangs who are taking advantage of this. One young lady who has a shop around our offices has lost all her valuables in her shops. And again, she has lost all the valuables around her shop around Moi Avenue. This is an innocent Kenyan who has suffered the wrath of criminal gangs, not the wrath of these innocent boys. So what I'm saying is this. If the government is at a place whereby it cannot tell between the gangs and the innocent or the harmless protesters, let him find a way of calling or de-escalating the whole situation.
All right, and just to give you a glimpse of the situation there in Kangemi, it appears that the tensions have risen quite fast, and we have to move away from that area. Our journalist Frederick Mwitiriri, together with the rest of our crew, have fled away from the area. We've seen the police officers as well trying to escape the area that is now overrun by the young people there. A lot of tear gas canisters lobbed at the crowd there. Let's just get some sounds from the ground.
Hapa ndio wanakaa. Ana kazi na. Oh, twende. Sawa, mshuke. Twende Tobias. Twende. Sibaki na karao hapa bila karao. Unajua kuna karao ndio wale. Katikati ya watu. Usiwahi kaa katikati ya watu. Sawa. Hapo. Wanakuja pale. Hapo Fikma. Sasa sisi polisi wanaona. Usibaki solo. Twende usibaki solo. Wale karao na wane huruma. Hawana haraka pale. Hapo sawa. Hapo ni kidogo sana. Unajua wanataka kuingia hivi. Yes. Yes. Hapo ni kidogo. We leave for Saturday. Wanaingia Christmas. Yes. Wanaingia. Christmas ni wangapi? Wameenda kusimama pale. Oh, nimeona makarao huko. Mimi nimesikia rukura nikajua nikaona polisi wanajaribu Ngori, wewe unajua kuna wanyoko na nguvu wanarudia mori na sababu. Kando uko na kugongana kwa njia twende na hata niingie huko. Wewe unajua kwa kiza hizo. Unaona zote. Hii ya chakaba zote. Ndio hizo kwa yako kwa. Sisi ndio tusikize.
All right, so those are the live pictures we're getting from Waiyakiwe, away from Kangemi, as our journalists moved away from the area when the escalation of, when the situation continued to escalate. Frederick Mwitiriri, together with the rest of our crew, moving away from that area. And you can see a number of people that have managed to now make their way to Waiyakiwe. But I want us to now cross over live to Thika Road, where Brian Mushiri is also on standby to give us a picture of the situation. Brian, if you can hear me, paint for us the situation.
Good afternoon, Zain. I can hear you clearly, and like you've so rightly put it, coming to you live from Thika Road, this is the intersection towards Kiambu Road and Muthaiga area. It has been a largely calm day on this major highway in the driving into the capital, Nairobi. We did make our usual round from the CBD, that's the capital, right from our offices down towards the Globe roundabout and the Koja roundabouts, coming down, and we've made our way all the way to Roiro, just having a look, because contrary to what we had seen last week, this week has seen a relatively calm situation here on Thika Road. You see, remember last week we did see some young men and women, the protesters, or some protesters, just closing down Thika Road as we know it from the Old Soaps bus stop. But this week and today in particular has been largely calm. The transport sector has not been affected in any way on Thika Road, contrary to some indications on social media that there had been protesters on Thika Road. I can report that the road is clear. There has been no major incidents that have caused any traffic snarl-ups. There have been no incidences where protesters have closed this particular road. So all that we saw during that particular period was a time on Koja roundabout, as well as the Globe roundabout leading to the other side on Kijabe Street, where police officers did engage protesters on that particular area just to quell them from getting into the CBD. They did have to lob tear gas canisters to those particular protesters on Koja roundabout as well as Globe roundabout. But the entire of Thika Road all the way to Roiro, nothing doing, Zain, nothing doing.
Right, Brian Mushiri giving us an update of what is happening along the Muthaiga area in along Thika Road, and the situation there relatively calm, but we'll continue to monitor the situation as well. Frederick Mwitiriri is along Wayakiwe at this point from Kangemi. We saw the situation get a little bit out of hand, so we're still going to go back to him in a short while to hear from him and exactly what is happening. Gina Kirori is stationed at Mlolongo, and we also will be joining her to hear what is happening along Mlolongo. There was a bit of tension there as well. Ruth Sarmui Chesenge, who is in Nakuru together with Fatma Bugu from Mombasa County, where there is a lot happening in those areas as well. We saw something happening in Kisii as well and in Kisumu. So we're going to be giving you pictures of the situation. I'm still here in studio with my panelists, Gashui Kariuki as well as Suleiman Bashir, just to try and understand and try and figure out from a wider perspective the affairs of the nation and why we found ourselves in this situation. Gashui, when you're looking at those pictures in Kangemi and also other areas within the country where we're seeing these protests, a lot of public anger, also stemming from the issue of corruption in the government that has not been addressed. There's the issue of poor governance, and then the issue of unfulfilled promises by the administration when it took over power. Do you think the people, the leaders who are in government understand these issues are the things that brought us to where we are?
I think, as I had mentioned earlier, when this conversation was starting, there was a bit of doubt and maybe arrogance from parts of sections of our leaders who probably underestimated how angry and how deep this disappointment and anger and disillusionment, even disenchantment within the youth population was, and the larger Kenyan population. I don't think they understood how angry, how bitter, how disenchanted people were. And when they made these promises 2 years ago, when they were getting into office, I don't think they thought we would get to this point where Kenyans are now holding them to account for everything they said. Mulitupatia manifesto.
All right, that has been the ODM party, of course, led by Raila Odinga and the Secretary General, that is Edwin Sifuna, addressing the press on what is happening in the country. First, they have condemned the use of force as far as police officers are concerned when it comes to dealing with the protest. They have also condemned the abductions that have been witnessed in the country ever since these protests began. And they're calling on the leadership of the country to listen to the people and do what the young people are asking the Kenya Kwanza government and the entire leadership of the country to do. They've termed this as the Kenya's last best chance to implement the demands of the Kenyan youth. Now, they are also calling on the government to take full responsibility of all the death and abductions that have been witnessed in the country, and IPOA to expedite investigations into the police murders that have been witnessed in different parts of the country, totaling to close to 39 people, according to the Kenya Human Rights Commission. All right, the ODM party has also said that it will initiate recall process in these particular constituencies, that is Gem, Bondo, Navaholo, Kajiado, Ikolomani, and Suba South, for they termed as members of parliament from these particular constituencies went against their responsibility to speak on behalf of the people and voted for the Finance Bill 2024. The criteria they say that they've used to select this is repeat offenders. Those are some of the members of parliament that did this in 2013, 2023 and also in 2024 in this particular finance bill. What you're seeing on the screen, on your screen right now, is Waiyaki Way, whereby we see quite a number of protesters and also police vehicles trying to maintain order in that on that particular road, with people engaging them as they try to exercise what we'll say is their democratic right. Of course, using tear gas in some instances to try and disperse the crowds that keep on gathering there. Right. Back here in studio with our conversation. We've had, let me come to you, Kabila la Vijana.
Yes.
We've had what the ODM party has. Just briefly, if you can comment on what the statement from the ODM party.
I want to echo what the SGODM has said. I think this is the best moment and this is the best time for Kenya to take a turn. And if the president and the government is not going to listen to what is happening, then I think we are heading to a wrong direction.
Okay.
You know, on my way here, I was listening to my brothers. You know, just for a light moment, Ken here, we used to be with him in the party.
I'm still in the party. I'm still a member of the party. You see, there are two Ken. There's Kennedy Sankara, there's Ken Bab.
There's Kennedy. You know, Kennedy, we were with the Kennedy when ANC joined us.
Okay.
Akapiga chenga katuacha in this hot soup.
No,
you know, what I want to say is this.
And I was not part of their conversation. You know, so I don't just join people blindly. If he talked to William Ruto at a personal level and decided to join him, I didn't include me, I didn't buy the ideology. I ship out.
So what I want to say, the conversation that we're having as a country, this is the best conversation. And if I were the president, this is the time he needs to come down and listen what the youths are saying. Demonstrations are enshrined in the constitution and they must be listened. And I want to thank all the Gen Zs, wherever they are, all the youths. And let me tell you,
some of them
I
are
want
seated
to
on this
confirm
particular
here,
table.
who are seated here, and I want to confirm here, you know, 60% of the youths who are outside in these streets now, majority of them voted for this government.
Very true.
60% of those who are in the streets.
Extreme disappointment.
So this total disappointment, and the president must listen. Now, asiposikiza, he has to shuka. Yeah, he has to come down.
So from where you sit, you know, you represent a youth, of course, Kabila la Vijana there.
Yes.
Are we not communicating right as the youth of this country that the president is not listening to you? Because hearing you, of course, is hard. It's hard because this is very loud everywhere.
You know,
but why is he not acting on some of the things that you're putting across?
When the demonstration began, Brian, they were very peaceful. Youths came to streets, they demonstrated very peacefully. And they went back. On Thursday, instead of listening on what youths were agitating for on Tuesday, he sent more policemen. I get that. I think as youths, we've tried to communicate. The information is home. But the arrogancy that we are seeing from the government side, everybody knows, I belong to the government, I campaign for this government. I'm in the UDA party, but we've tried to speak even for the officials in the party. We've tried to tell them, the SD, go talk to the president, let him talk down. But what we are seeing is the arrogance from the majority leader, the arrogance from Osoro, the arrogance from the leaders from the government. So I think it's time for them to listen. This is the best moment.
You say you campaign for this government, Japheth. Now, this is the thing. I'd like to believe you're still part of government, right? Are you?
You know, I'm not part of the government.
Okay, but do you still support the government?
Until they come down.
Until they come down?
Yeah.
So what would you say is the reason as well? Because I'd like to believe if the government itself needs, even if it's not listening to the whole population, needs to listen to the youth within its institution, its ranks and all that.
You know, number one, we don't have those youths within the government because we have not been given that opportunity. The last time I was in the office, we tried to raise issues with the party leadership. And we said, since we have no access to State House, kindly, as you visit the president, take this to the president. The problem that we are seeing here are MPs, first-time MPs, some members of parliament, some people around the president who got to power and the power got into their heads. I don't know where they got all this money that they're distributing each and every weekend in fundraising. There's a kind of arrogance that got into these people.
You are not here, but we are buying the same sentiments.
There's a kind of arrogance that got into these people. There is a certain part, give me a difference. In the last regime, we were complaining about Matiang'i. Oh, Matiang'i is arrogant. Give me the difference between Matiang'i and Kimani Ichung'wah. We were complaining about Kibicho. Can you give me the difference between Farouk Kibet now and Kibicho? Give me the difference between the former DCI Kinoti and this Akina Itumbi. There's no difference. So what they must do is to come down.
The outcome of any of those three options, it's up to him. But for now, this is the best time. It is not about waiting until so many lives are lost. That's what he did with the finance bill. By the time he withdrew it, lives have been lost. And this particular protests were out of hand. So we should not always wait for the last minute, or we should not wait for pressure from the international communities. By the time he came to address the question of the finance bill, the UN Secretary General was commenting about Kenya. Several senators in the states were talking about the attacks that were being made on the protesters. I think this is the right time to handle this scenario. If he is waiting for tomorrow or the day after, I think he will be looking at this in a very thin lens. In short, if we are a country that is governed by the law and we want a president who can run us according to our constitution, let us have him also operate by the law. If there are those who are arrested, let them not be taken around. On Friday last week, myself and two lawyers were walking around police stations. We were looking for someone who has been arrested by the police. Ideally, if arrested in the CBD, you should be taken to the central police station. We went there, you are told your person is Muthaiga. You go to Muthaiga. So you feel so bad when you meet an OCS and he tells you, Angelo Mtwako around Rongai. You go to Rongai, you are told he's in Kajiado. What are we? What kind of an example are we showing to these young boys? We have cops who are killing people in broad daylight. We're not addressing the issue, but we're now addressing the question of 4 boys who have maybe sneaked into a supermarket and stole goods. Yes, that's a criminal issue, but let's address every wrongful issue holistically.
All right. And there you have it, live pictures from Waiyaki, where we know that police had been pushed from Kangemi flyover to now the Communications Authority officers along Waiyaki, where these officers, together with the other journalists, had to leave the area. And we're now joined by Frederick Muchiri, who's joining us live via a phone, just to give us details of what is happening. Fred, keep us abreast. What's happening right now?
Thank you, Zainab. I can hear you loud and clear. And what you're seeing right now, police officers drawn from different units. Let me switch to my Kiswahili. Kile ambacho nakiona ni kwamba maafisa wa polisi ambao walikuwa wamerudishwa nyuma kwa hivi sasa wameitana maafisa wa polisi wengi kweli. Vikosi kama 4 hivi vimeletwa na vimefika hapa kwenye eneo hili, eneo la Kangemi. Tumerudishwa chini hadi kwenye jumba hili la Communication Center karibu na duka kuu la Quickmart, ambako vijana hapa walikuwa wanataka kuvamia duka hili, lakini maafisa wa polisi wakakimbia, wakaitana na muona kamanda wa polisi wa Nairobi Bungei yashafika hapa. Amefika na vikosi vyake, vikosi 4, naona vikosi vya AP, vikosi vya GSU, vikosi vya polisi wa kawaida, na vile vile wale wa kufanya fujo uone, wale tunaita GSU. Kwa hivi sasa wamefika hapa kuhakikisha kwamba wale vijana ambao walikuwa wametorosha maafisa wa polisi, walikuwa wamewarusha hizo. Mtazamaji wetu, kwa upande wa kushoto, maafisa wa polisi wanaendelea kufika hapa kwa wingi. Kwa upande wa kushoto, picha ambazo unaziona hivi sasa ni maafisa wa polisi ambao ni wa kupigana, ukifanya fujo wanakabiliana nawe. Wameingia ndani ya Kangemi hapa. Vijana walikuwa wengi sana kupita wale maafisa wa polisi. Maafisa wa polisi hawakuwa wengi sana, lakini hivi sasa wamefika. Naona gari zaidi ambazo zimefika hapa ni zaidi ya 15 ambazo zimekuja kuwasaidia wale ambao walikuwa hapa, na washaingia kule ndani ya eneo hili la Kangemi, ambako kulikuwa na vijana chungu nzima. Waliwaweza maafisa wa polisi kadhaa ambao walikuwa hapa, walikuwa wakipigana nao kwa zaidi ya saa 2 hivi, saa 3 wakapigana nao hadi wakatoroshwa. Nafikiria zile vitoza machozi ziliweza kuwaishia, wakaweza kutoroka, lakini mmoja wao ambaye alikuwa ni kamanda wao akakimbia na kuitisha usaidizi zaidi. Sasa wamefika maafisa wale wa GSU ambao wanaingia kule ndani kukabiliana na wale ambao walikuwa wanajaribu kuingia kwenye duka hili la Quickmart ambalo liko kwenye barabara kuu ya Waiyaki kuelekea kule Nakuru. Kwa hivi sasa naona maafisa wa polisi wameingia na kupanda kule juu ambako barabara ilikuwa imefungwa kwa zaidi ya saa 5. Saa zile ambazo tulifika hapa, barabara hiyo imekuwa imefungwa kwa muda sana, lakini nafikiria maafisa wa polisi sasa wanapanda kule juu kuhakikisha kwamba wanafungua hiyo barabara. Sisi tutakuwa tukiwafuata wale maafisa wa polisi ambao wamepanda kule juu kuona iwapo wataondoa.
That is accountable, a demonstration that is focused with achievable targets, that we want accountability when it comes to public management of resources. We want accountable spendings. We will find the president knows very well that we are agitating the debt financing strategies. Then he says, because you have rejected the finance bill, I am going to borrow. Okay. We are against borrowing. There are countries in Africa that have never borrowed. Look at countries like Libya, Botswana, and another one. They've never borrowed even a cent from IMF. But IMF is a very wrong institution, because today as we speak, I was eating maize yesterday. This maize happened to be organic, very sweet, and some pop-up from the village. I can tell you, Brian, organic farming is the most sustainable way of farming. But IMF, as we know, has got 100% rule of seed certification. These certified seeds, we are fighting, they create climate change crisis, they create funds that do not even get to Africa, then they are the ones benefiting from these funds. Then they create for you punitive laws like the eco-levy. Are we at par with manufacturing giant economies like Japan, China, and America? Are they taxing their people on eco-levy? Where do you think of taxing Kenyans? The imagination of thinking of introducing that tax with it even being rejected and dropped. Dropping is not an issue. We must investigate the motivation behind the suggestion. Okay. How do you even think of suggesting such? You want to tax manufacturers ab initio. You are taxing manufacturing, raw materials vis-a-vis finished products. When I import a finished product, you only tax me on the import duty. But here I am manufacturing the same here. You want to tax me on the raw material? That's why
Brand, before Japhet come in, we are more concerned about the motivation. Because, let me tell you, if young people, not people, but young Kenyans could have not stepped out to tell this government that you are not going to pass this thing, that thing could have passed by now, shamelessly. Yeah. Let me tell you, let me ask you a question, Brand. You're a journalist, and I believe you do research here and there. Why do you think a poison has an expiry date? Yet it is a poison. If this water expires, it becomes poison. But a poison in its existence has an expiry date. So what happens after it has expired? That's an explanation that the system is already rigged. This system as it is rigged. And that's why when the president was now rejecting his own finance bill, which is puppets in parliament, had passed, and now the puppets are sitting behind were clapping, and you see Osoro shamelessly clapping. This guy has now rejected. Let me tell you.
The journalist who is asking, what about development? Development guy.
It is a shame. You know why we are so much bitter with the young members of parliament misbehaving? Those are the people who make the situation look like youth cannot be trusted by leadership. Yes. Because somebody like Osoro, a young man, somebody like Shum, a young man.
Actually, this parliament has given a reason as to why young people should not be allowed to lead, but that is harm to young people.
Given a leadership opportunity to lead a national assembly. When we had people like Kenneth Marende, people like Ole Kaparo as speakers of this country, you could switch off your TV, close your business, and go and listen to what the parliament is doing.
The 10th parliament.
Look at that. Today, what happens? You don't even care whether they are passing the bill or nothing, because these guys have shown us that they've reduced this house to an individual interest. What is the boss saying?
You heard what Millie Odhiambo said, that as they were running out to safety, she came back, she left her bag only to find the appropriation bill being passed by parliament. So you wonder,
not even parliament, by members of you.
By members of UDA. So do we really have a house that represents the people?
Okay, yes. Let UDA member now put it on context.
Listen, in the last campaign, we were agitating for youth leadership. And we really worked hard, tirelessly, day and night, to ensure that the youthful members that we had, the youthful aspirants that we had then are elected. Okay. That's when, as Kabela Vijana, we decided to sponsor some.
Yeah, I remember that.
You remember that? But unfortunately, when these people were elected and got into power, power got into their heads. Young and youthful leadership in parliament are misleading Kenyans. The arrogance, the kind of arrogance that we are seeing in them, not only in the government, also in the political party that we fought for, in a party that we built. In fact, we were moving from one house to another, doing the registration, membership registration for UDA. But when it came to even the grassroots elections, you know, there's some who are calling me and asking me, why are you quiet on what is happening? I told them, where it has reached with this government, then we have to wash our hands. You know.
But if you wash your hands, my friend, why you washing your
hands? You see, and joining the revolution.
Listen, you see what Japheth is saying. That's why we're in the streets.
What Japheth is saying is very sad. Let me tell you. I want to speak from a political party perspective. Do you want to tell me that in UDA, as it stands right now, or before, during elections, towards nominations, Karen Nyamu was the best woman to sit in the Senate? I'm not being personal, no, you know, but look at how does a nominated member come and tell us? How does a nominated member come and tell us that we have talked with somebody, we are going to give tampons to primary and high school students? Do you know what a tampon is? A tampon cannot be used by a girl who is still a virgin, banner. That's what
mention the nominated members.
Let's make it blank.
Okay.
So what we are saying, what this guy is saying is true. At the nomination point, that is where the youth were shot. Yeah. On the
directing opportunities to
on the head. Whatever that are in the streets today, and that's what I'm telling you. 60% of the youth in these streets, majority of them are UDA members.
Disappointed. Extremely.
Lied to. Beyond repair.
But we are saying these people must go back.
Mwaka huu na ile next month.
Okay, let's come back to one of the things that I've had the ODM party to speak to. And in terms of this disappointment, that a lot of people feel like they're very disappointed, especially with their members of parliament. And the ODM says they should initiate the process of
parliament situation. We have seen leaders from other countries give their views and talk about how they are closely monitoring the situation. That is not a good image for us as a country. We have created an image of people who are progressive, a democracy that actually work, institutions, government institutions that work, and as per our constitution, a very strong constitution that is very pro-people. So it is my hope that as we continue this conversation, as we continue seeing some of these images, things will be able to de-escalate. But everyone within the government has to have a sense of reflection and calm down. Kila mtu lazima ashuke. Kila mtu ashuke.
All right. Yeah. So we'll continue to just give you those live pictures from Wayaki, when, of course, it is situation in Kangemi, of exactly what is happening. Police that had been pushed from the area up to Wayaki Way, but they're now making their way back to that area. What we also know is that in Nyeri, police in Karatina have lobbed tear gas to disperse protesters who are trying to gather. And also a quick update on IPOA, which says it is awaiting expert reports and more witness statements to complete the probe into the deaths of Rex Masai, Evans Kiraitu, and the 37 others were killed in the protests last week. And also foreign embassies are warning nationals as the protests continue. That's several foreign embassies in Kenya who have now issued safety advisories as their citizens to their citizens as the protests resumed here in Nairobi and other different parts in the country as well. Also, tension remains high in Kitengela as protesters attempted to break into Quiver Lounge. That's a popular bar in the area, but they were repulsed by a security team together with some plainclothes police officers as well. And also in Nakuru, running...
Will affect all of them. He was elected. You increase the salary of Mr. Ahmed Shakil Shabir as a member of parliament for Kisumu East, then a teacher who has been teaching, removing stupidity while inserting wisdom and knowledge into children's brains so that they rise as responsible, dependable citizens who are meaning well and progress for this country. You are telling us for the month of July, because we are going to pay more on MPs, you people will go without salary. We are speaking at a midst of an inflation. We are speaking at a midst of a situation, a political crisis that we have in the country. No one cannot survive on anything. And then you are telling us you are going to pay politicians more than you pay professionals. Since when in the world did a member of parliament start earning more than a doctor, start earning more than a teacher? But what we need to do.
We need to enhance. Let me put it just a moment. We need to enhance professionalism and empower professionalism. You cannot say in that parliament there are people who never went to school, and you know that. I don't want to mention name, but you cannot say that somebody like that. You cannot say that somebody like that is going to be given more salaries than a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher.
Okay, so let me come to
as I finish, we really need, before you ask me the question, we really need to re-examine the goodies that are attached to political offices. In my own opinion, as the protests are going on, some of the justification and bare minimums we are going to make is to have extremely pathetic situation for elected leaders in those offices. As a leader, you are elected to serve and not become a boss. Why should we have 100 billion attached to MPs to do CDF disbursement, where they demand an electoral card? How do you tie education, which is a basic right for every child, to a mere political exercise that ends in a day? Why should we go ahead paying MPs more than people who produce farm produce? Agriculture is the backbone of our economy. President William Ruto's regime, under the advice of Kimani Ichung'wah, yule kijana anaitwa Osoro, have sold fake fertilizer to our farmers who are our parents. We are now staring at a scenario where we are going to have inadequate food supply. This is going to affect even the export that we do, because agriculture is the basis of our economy. Okay. In traditional African society, children and fathers went to farms to produce crops to make families self-reliant and sustainable. In this case, a government that operates on our taxpayers, when I go to the supermarket, I pay VAT. That VAT is translating into what governments used to spend on. How do we manage fiscal discipline while making realistic and attainable tax tax targets? So the fiscal indiscipline in this administration is some of the things that are pushing people beyond the limit. I speak here about fiscal discipline. I feel burning and exploding like a tear gas canister thrown in the hands of a wrong police officer, almost getting out 3 of my hands out. So, Brian, we really need to have a country that people are going to respect the rule of law, that we are going to have a country where people are accountable to leadership. And we should ensure that these goodies that are attached to these offices, you are living alone, Brian. You are working alone in an office. Then we elect you 1 month to the office. You need someone to drive you. You need someone to protect you. You need someone to write for you.
And as a member of his party, I want to remind the president, and I want to tell him, he failed right away from his appointment. Okay. You know, we've got 3 major ministries in this country: agriculture, education, and the other one is
health.
And health. Look at the people he appointed in those ministries. Look at this man Linturi.
The only qualification he was told to have is to go and shave off his beard.
Let him finish.
Did you know Nakumicha? What has ever Nakumicha done in this country? Do you know someone like Machogo? Machogo has never.
He was a failed politician.
Okay, so let's focus.
When this guy is bringing up that point, just give him time. It's not an issue of mentioning name. We are putting the president on check.
We are ready to be arrested.
We are putting the president on check because it's the problem. What he's saying, those are the problems we are having.
I get you. No. Just a moment.
Just a proceed.
No.
We need the serious appointment.
Okay. A moment. Take a glass of water first.
Let me chip in on the issue.
No, wait. I need to finish it. I need to finish it, Jaffa. Your water is down here, but I think you guys need a glass of water. So I was talking about the issue to do with representation, especially when it comes to members of the National Assembly. And we are in the process of recalling that. And I want us to exhaust that first before we get into where the mistakes were done when it comes to appointment in
or the question of shooting people. That is, I think, the objective, or that's the dream that our country must have someday. In the US, you have university students who are being arrested, for example, against the anti-Palestine and the anti-Gaza war. It is not happening this way. They are coming out, they are picketing, they are sometimes obstructing road accesses. The worst that may happen is that some of them may be arrested and put in police bands and taken to court. The kind of shooting, the last thing that should happen in Kenya is the question of killing a Kenyan. That must not happen. The question of injuring or damaging someone's property must not happen. But where we are, we are at a scenario whereby the police have to come and save Quickmart. It's a it's a grim situation or a scenario that we are in. That means my own place or where I live or where you live may not also be safe. where shall we find ourselves in? If you look at what has happened in Angola some time back, it got to a point when the private persons had to arm themselves, just like in Johannesburg, to protect their own property. And that tells you it will be an anarchy. Because the owner of Naivas, tomorrow or the day after, if you damage it, he will end up armoring himself, or he will end up getting some weaponry to protect his own property. So where are we finding ourselves in? Are we going to get, is the situation going to get out of hand? Should these protesters who were initially peaceful now think of rummaging the goods of at Quickmart? As we could hear from the news again, Quiver Lounge in Rongai, Kitengela, those places, that must not happen. If that happens, we agree for the police to come in with the objective of bringing in law and order. It is not about killing, so that now we're able to suppress everything and go back to the default mode. Now we can have a discussion on now again how we can have the protest. Because protest, we can have it next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but for now, the situation seems to be getting a bit out of hand. We also need the President or the CS for Interior to come out and tell us, for now, we suspend everything. We can have a conversation. If that conversation fails, we can come back to the streets. But Saizi, things are getting out of hand. Clearly, things are really, really getting out of hand, because it's only this number of police officers whose even lives are at risk, who are the ones who are now in our streets. Now, when the police are also away from the media cameras, we do not know what they may do to those particular persons. Again, we may end up finding scenarios of people who are being told they're being tortured or being killed in their houses. And as a country, we must shun away from that. Let's read the script of the other states. Libya has had such a thing. Today it is normal. Sudan and many other places have suffered a similar scenario. So let's not get to that particular point. That's why we need, all these boys will not hear Kindiki, they may not listen to Raila or myself. They want audience with who? With the president. And even if one day he will take a vehicle and go to Baraza in Kiambu or Kangemi or even Rongai, let him do that. These are the people who have put him in office. If they will stone him, it's up to them. Or if they will give him the audience. But there are basic things that he needs to do for now, so that at least we can have some sense of normalcy. Right. Yourself and myself, we do not know when we live here how we are going to get our own houses, and that is not the kind of country we have. For me, my office is not open. She could not go to our place of work today. My associates could not come to office. Where are we getting at? The basic person in our building is the cleaner. Today she could not report to work. What are you doing to our income? A Quickmart, which is just next to us, even if I go to work, I cannot buy the basic stationery I used to buy. That's why I'm saying, let's not look at this in the normal sense. Let's look at it in an extraordinary way, so that we can see, let tomorrow not be today. As a country, at least we can have some sense of sense.
And Gashui, you know what Suleiman says, we're here, and so the president must first address the situation before we even go to the policy issues and changing the bigger picture. But here we are. So what does he need to do when he said, look, I'm going to go to Twitter, or is it X?
So we are saying, Kenya, currently as it is, we don't have that honesty person who can stand up and do the right thing. Exactly. That's why these people are in the streets. So we will recall you as we continue cleaning.
In that process, and I've mentioned, there's, like you just said, you collect signatures, you identify the issues. Up to now, we have more than 1,000 issues to recall these members of parliament, more than it. But now the issue is, let me tell you, Bran, you are you are a journalist, but some of these things are, in as much as there is independence of the media. You from inside here and other journalists, you know that independence of yours has been curtailed, and you are not free to talk about. Let us talk about it on your behalf. Get this from me. Then the non-existence of IBC in this country is intentional. It is intentional. And we do not have, just like he said, we do not have honest leaders in that house. That house is a house at test. And it's a house of question.
So Kenbabu, my question is this. We want to do the process of recalling, right?
Okay.
But now we are not trusting the institutions that have been put in place to help us, carry out that particular exercise to the end. We are like, we will collect signatures, yes, but when it comes to a point where the speaker gets to announce that members of your constituency have recalled you, that now we want to declare your seat vacant. Okay. You don't trust that is a possibility.
What is it? What is it about these young people that is so bothering, that they cannot even allow me to do what I need to do? Probably has good intentions, I don't know. But if he did have good intentions, the first thing I would do is recall my executive, recall everyone. Okay. Either reshuffle, dismiss, anyone who has a corruption case.
And anything will happen.
And because we've realized that this process, it's somehow curtailed in the process. There's some curtailment.
Every single
That's
process
why we are saying
in Kenya has been curtailed.
That's why we are saying, and you are hearing the voice of people out there, that this guy, the entire presidency, the entire government should go home. The president has the power to wake up and say that we are disbanding this government.
So, Bran,
yes,
let's go in on the recall. You know, this is a better said than done practice in the Kenyan political arena due to the procedural technicalities that are raised by the political class. As far as recall is concerned, it is not a huge process though, but the politicians in place are making it very difficult because under Article 104, in reference or as quoted with Article 97 and 98, they denote they acknowledge the authority of the people to recall a legislator. But now let us speak of the process. The process first initiates or begins with IBC. The recall stages, the petitioner, who is a registered voter, is to collect signatures from at least 30% of the registered voters in that constituency. And the signatures must include at least 15% of voters in at least half of the wards in the constituency. So that is process one. The second process, the petitioner submits the collected signatures to the IEBC during submission, and petition has been submitted a list of grounds of impeachment. On the grounds, we have gross misconduct, violation of the constitution, an electoral offense, blah, blah. They form 4 grounds, or 3 or the 4 grounds that constitute the removal of an MP from office. The IBC will then verify and validate the signatures.
Calling your executive to order, you know, because that's one of the things that young people keep on saying. We have these issues because we keep seeing these characters, these people, what they're doing, they're hemorrhaging. We are seeing a lot of theft. We're seeing a lot of arrogance, intimidation from these particular officers. And it's not necessarily the president himself, but his cronies and his agents, the people who he has delegated mandates to. You're going to run this ministry, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. There are elements of, you know, poor ethics from all these people. So to extend an olive branch, first of all, do away with them, or at least call them to order, reinforce. Rein in on them, rein in on these characters. And then now from there, it becomes easier.
In Kenya, as things stand today, we would wish to recall all the MPs who voted I vote yes, Mr. Speaker, for the finance bill that was just expunged from the budget. But now when I, as a registered voter, because I know after on 15th of August or so, I am going to lead the people of Kisumu East in collecting signatures against one Mr. Shakil Shabir. Where will I take them to? Where is the IBC? So the constitutional crisis that has been created by hijacking of the process is unconstitutional. The IBC is there. It is the representation that is not there. Because an IBC is not a creation of a political process. An IBC is a creation of the Constitution. It is there in the Constitution. But now placement of individual to execute the roles of the commission is where we draw the line. We have political interest playing at play. We really need to have an institution that is solely responsible for the people, because it is installed in the office by the people. So this entire scenario is a problem created by our own MPs. Why are we even speaking of collecting signatures? Then where do we take them? So on grounds that are currently justifiable, as we see them in the country, we can send the entire 13th parliament.
Not even dressed in the police regalia. They are dressed as plain clothes. So someone is dressed in plain cloth, he's wearing a mask, and there's the AK-47. What more are you trying to tell the people of Kenya? See, these are the simple things that he continues failing. They're on the screen. I just saw a few police officers, plain clothes, masked, and they have an AK-47. So that person may not even have a tear gas canister. So what are you trying to say? Are you telling us that you are willing to kill more and more persons? So in short, let him address this urgent issue by firstly dealing with his Inspector General of Police. The way these protesters are being handled is not the proper or ordinary way of handling protests. Secondly, the question of immediately trying to address the question of wastages and all that is something he can do. The other day they were a bit happy when he said he's going to do away with the CAS. That makes some sense. The question of these particular budgets that are placed for persons such as the CSE, the Prime Cabinet Secretary's spouse and all that. And again today in some of the media houses, some of the local dailies in our country were trying to give us a story of increased salaries for a section of the parliamentarians. So for as long as we're waking up to such news, there is no such goodwill we can see from the side of the president. If Kenyans wake up to the story that says there is a budgetary slash or a budgetary cut on the part of the Parliamentary Service Commission, people will be happy. There'll be some salary cut for MCAs, Kenyans will see some sense of what you're talking about. If you say that you're no longer borrowing some funds, it will make some sense. If you tell us that the expressway toll fees that we are paying every month will be reduced a bit, because one of the stories in the Business Daily today was that the shilling has gained against the dollar, yet the amount we are paying as toll fee on the expressway is still high. So there are certain real-time conversations. If we have them, these boys will not be on the streets, honestly speaking. Make it easy for these boys to get their passports. Some of them have talents. They're skilled. Every single day they're queuing around your house. You're making them take matatus from here to Embu just to go and try and see whether they can get a passport in Embu. So there are simple things that if he does, he will even make it easy for us to export our own talents and knowledge to other countries that are willing to appreciate the same. So this man, the problem with him, so once he assumed the office, and I don't know why, it is most of our with President Uhuru, this was the case. Kibaki made some sense in terms of how he assumed his office. But these other presidents of late, the person is very sensible with you around campaign time and before he becomes the president. But when that particular person sits on this particular seat, you'll be surprised. You will no longer hear about him, or he will have changed, or he will not be able to appreciate the real-time issues that are affecting you. In short, President Ruto is not expected to meet all the youth. He is simply expected, number one, to take off all police officers who are killing us. Number two, to waive the fee for all those who are now in hospital facilities, or those particular ones who are suffering gunshot wounds. Number three, pay off some of these families who have lost their young boys and girls who are fending, who are providing for these particular families. Four, show us your humane side. Visit these particular families, condole with them. Wapatie pole, show them that you are their president. 5, this is your country, you are the head of state. Walk around. If you want to interact with them, interact with them. But for now, that is the easiest or the simplest thing that he can do. In terms of protecting property, he's doing well. Let the police do what they can in terms of try and repulsing the youth. These boys who you are being told that they're coming to break into Quickmart, they are not armed with a panga or anything. The best they have is a stone. And you know, that may not make our officers shoot at someone who is just carrying one small stone. Seriously speaking, you know, sometimes you have to be reasonable. The number may be huge of boys who are coming to take away or steal or break into some private properties, which is very shameful and unfair. But now the approach, the response that we are giving, or the repulse,
whether it's proportionate,
it is not proportional at all. And Justice Chacha Mwita, last week, it's some of the issues he talked about. He said he directed the Inspector General to have his officers not to use excessive force or unproportional force. In terms of what we can see, it's already again in breach of that court order. And it is the same court that allowed him to keep his military on our streets, even as the LSK has tried to oppose the same. So it is not fair. You appreciate the law when it's on your side, and you do not appreciate it when those particular directives are against what you want. So for now, our police are doing a bit well, but in terms of the way they mask themselves, the way they come in unidentified clothings, unmarked vehicles, again masking themselves, hiding their faces, that is sending a very, very negative signal to these boys. Because they're just thinking that these guys are coming to kill us. And by the way, yesterday, in one of the local Kamukunjis, I think it was even going round, I had one of the boys who was saying that any police officer who may come, who may not be in police uniform, we will regard him as an enemy of ours, which is true, because you will see them, when a police officer who is in uniform approaches them, they run away. But now, where will you place someone who is wearing a mask and is not in police uniform? And 2, if that person shoots, or even the media tries to cover, you will not know where this person is. 3, some of the discoveries we're making, or what you're being told, is that some of these officers, some of these persons are not even in this police service. You do not know where they have been recalled from. So,
is there a law that perhaps would give the police officers that leeway to civilian clothing while in an operation?
No, the
like
National Police Service Act is a bit clear in terms of how you... In fact, if you are Zainab, if you ask any of these protesters, if you're a protester and you approach a police officer, according to what our law wants, and you ask him, sir, identify yourself to me, he's supposed to tell you his name and his police force number. That has never happened in our country. In fact, as a lawyer, I've been to Central Police Station. You come to meet the OCS. You want to see the OCS and the OCS doesn't want to see you. Forget about what you can see on the streets. That is the kind of police service that we have in our country. So I don't know sometimes, is it because of the training or is it because of the kind of directives that they're given from those above them? I've been to the office of the regional commander of police. I can assure you, you will be surprised by the queue of Kenyans who are seated down there who want to see him. And you may find someone who is there since morning up until 2 p.m. and he may not meet the regional police commander. Why? Because this person may be having a problem with an OCS somewhere. These are the real-time issues that we have suffered, those of us in the justice system we have seen, and which now the good thing is that the media is focusing a lot on what's happening. It's basic. Those police officers who are using Ajana, the ones the media has focused, bring them, just pick them out, deal with them. Deal with them, show the people of Kenya that at least the ones who have shot at the journalists and the innocent people, or those ones who are passively the killer cops, deal with them. It's not every police officer who is bad. We have seen those ones that are now trying to escort those who are going home. That's a good way of, on the part of the National Police Service. But vitu ndogo that the president can address through his IG should be simple. He's the boss, he can direct the Inspector General. Today I saw a communication from the office of the DPP again, saying that they're going to prosecute any persons who damage private property. It's a good thing. Also, the DPP should do a communication to the DCI, asking the DCI to submit files of all police officers who have also involved themselves in anti-police, yes, in those kind of conducts that have gone against the dictates or the code of conduct of the National Police Service. Let this thing go both ways. Arrest the civilian who is making a mistake or the criminal. Also arrest the police officer who is misbehaving. That is how I think we'll be able to move forward as a country.
All right.
I just want to urge the authorities in this country to restrain themselves from using excessive force, especially when it comes to persons living with disability. We've seen even people with disability being tear gassed in the streets. We've seen, we have another case of a lady in Nyeri who is actually deaf, because some of these people they cannot even understand sometimes when violence in a situation where they don't understand what is actually happening. They cannot comprehend. Like persons living with autism, sometimes it's a bit hard for them to understand what is actually happening in the environment. So kindly, we need a lot of restraint when it comes to also using excessive force to an environment where they are mixed up. Persons living with disability are also part of this community. So anytime they're using, they are going to actually quell any disruptions. Let us use minimal force, because now those people, we've seen ladies being tear gassed in town, persons living with disability who are being tear gassed in town. Some are even being left in the streets when everyone, we saw what happened, people with disability being forgotten when everyone is being evacuated away from danger. So we just urge authorities to actually consider persons living with disability in this whole issue. When there is violence, kindly take care of these people, because we've seen that this young man is being shot for, maybe he didn't even understand what was actually, he would not comprehend what was actually happening. So it's a sad day for parents and also for persons living with disability. We've lost a young life. That is a very sad thing through police violence. So let's kindly preserve life. Life is precious.
Kiswahili hamtaki kuongea hata sisi.
Tunaona aje umetosheka. Uko sawa? Umetosha.
All right, that was a press conference in Nakuru County.
In the country, which certainly has been what has triggered this, the protests.
I think they would help if there was goodwill on the government's part to not only just come up with measures to cut off on excessive spending by certain offices or certain departments of government, but also to use that the monies that are now gained from these, or at least harvested from these extra expenditures, to go into service, public service, perhaps going into servicing e-citizen, going into the passports. My brother was talking about passports earlier. Right now, we have seen less, I don't know whether to call it a less clog or less demand with the issuance of the passport, but you can see that they moved the issuance from the 4,500 and the 7,500 to the, I think, 919, the 10,000 one, the one that goes all the way to 10,000 shillings. So if we're able to bring these monies into improving public service, you have issues like the DCI clearance. These are issues, by the way, that mostly affect young Kenyans. Issues that this clearance, the credit score, where you see that you get clearance regarding loans and services, those kinds of services. If we can go, if that money can go to that kind of, yes, correct, the CRB. If that money can go into servicing some of these installations, if it can go into engaging more JSS teachers into permanent and pensionable positions, then that will make sense. But if we're just seeing cuts, but we're not going to see improvement in services from these so-called cuts, then it's not going to make sense. I don't know if this is still the position, but as of yesterday, I think I saw that parliamentarians are going to get a hike in their salaries and allowances. It's ironic that they would even have that going on at a time like this when, like I previously said, we are on uncharted waters, uncharted political waters. Why would they allow themselves to go to be put again in the middle of such an unpopular situation with members of the public? So if it's possible for us to get those austerity cuts serving Kenyans in terms of improved public service, then it will make sense. And one thing, Zainab, and I would hope that our government would not be deceptive with this issue. Kenyans do not have an issue with paying taxes, number one. Kenyans do not have an issue with budgetary allocations, but Kenyans have an issue with hemorrhaging of our economy.
How the money is spent.
Exactly, how money is spent in this country. That is the issue we have. And as far as that is concerned,
imetolewa juu amepatikana watu wake. Alama ya pili ambayo ilikuwa kwa peka, nilikuwa nalia nikasema leo waliweka risasi 20 ya Kenya nzima ndio imemmaliza. Haikuwa ni hiyo, tukaambiwa hapo ni dawa. Walikuwa wanaweka dawa ingia wapi? Ingia kwa mwili. Nikauliza swali la tatu, na mbona mkuu mmoja umefura upande moja? Akasema hapo ni bullnet ilipikwa mahali pale, na hiyo bullnet ilikuwa ya nguvu. Ilitokea huku ikapasua mshipi mmoja, ile mshipi kubwa nzito kwa hiyo mkuu, so ikaanza kufunja damu na ikafunja damu kwa wingi. Na bila ilikuwa inafunja damu kwa wingi, hiyo ndio ilikuwa ya nguvu, ikalemea yeye. So nikauliza, na bullnet hii ni alama ilikuwa ya bullnet peke yake kwa hiyo mkuu? Nikaambiwa ni hivyo. Nikasema woi, mimi washikwe huyu, hivi ndio maisha yatakuwa Kenya hii? Maisha takwange mapulne kikupasua mikuu kama mshumeno ama walikuwa wanapika randa. Na randa yenyewe kararua upande moja. Kumbe hii ndio maisha yetu, tutakuwa tunapikanga kura na huku pulne zinakujia kwa mikuu. Huku tunapika kura, huku pulne kwa mikuu. Wananchi, tuangalia mahali hapo, hizo pulne tutazikubali saa yote. Zinaingilia kwa mikuu, wewe utoke na mkuu uende upige kura. Ukirudi pulne kikuja ikupata kwa mkuu na ulitoka na mkuu. Kwa hivyo hata kura ijayo tena tuchue ni pulinek ndio itakuwa wapi? Kwa mikuu zetu. Tusipike kura, tukae kwa nyumba. Na president sasa atakuwa ni nani? Na huku anaomba maombi, makanisa tuombe, wanatamu tuombe, na huku naye anatuomba na nini? Na mapulinek. Tutafanyaje? Mimi shikwe huyu, uchungu pato niko nayo katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Tangu president wa kwanza mpaka wa leo tumeshangaa.
Asante. Poleni.
Kuna mama ya mwingine hapo.
Oh.
Kwa majina ni Maria Mchomba. Kwa majina ni Maria Lohola Shikwe. Mimi ninashangaa. Tuko na watoto walemavu. Tutakuwa tunaficha watoto kwa nyumba. Wakitoka nje wanafanyia unyama kama hivi. Na tuko na watoto kama indakano pikia rais wetu kura. Tutawatupa, tutawapeleka wapi ama tuwafunge kwa miti? Tunauliza rais wetu atusaidie hapo.
Wait.
All right, those are live pictures coming to you from the CBD here in Nairobi. Of course, just seeing police using tear gas to try and disperse protesters who were hurling stones at the police officers, because it's been a running battle, you know, for the better part of today, whereby we've been able to see quite a lot of action happening on the streets. What you've been able to see just a few minutes ago is that those hurling of stones at police officers and the use of tear gas to try and disperse the protesters who are gathering on the streets of the CBD. Right now, of course, some of the protesters gathering, they are just, you know, as they continue with their picketing, which we say is, of course, their constitutional right, with police officers.
Songa hapo mbele kidogo. Hapo mbele.
Let's come back to, we've been able to see what was happening in Nakuru.
Right, that's the situation there in Karatina in Nyeri, and of course we can see the crowd sort of gathering again, and they're putting stones, taking stones and then placing them on the road. There is a fire that has been lit along the road. We saw a heavy contingent of police as well that had earlier on tried to disperse the crowd. So Josiah, who is there, is our team member and will be giving us the pictures of exactly what is happening. We'll also bring you back to what is also happening along Wayaki Way and all the way to Kangemi, where the situation has not been
At the state, what does that speak to?
I think, Bran, the lack of accountability and arrogance in addressing these issues is one of the reasons which is catalyzing the protest. You know, recently we had the roundtable meeting with the president, the interview, I mean at the media house. Mm-hmm. And when he spoke about the young man in Rongai, it was so sad. It was very sad. Because I watch TV and I've seen that woman like 3 times before the president spoke. And she kept mentioning the 8 bullets.
Other salaries are going to be increased according to the that Gazette notice. If I can just have a look at that, you have the salaries of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, the Attorney General, who is Justin Muturi, the Head of Public Service Felix Koskei and Secretary of the Cabinet Mercy Wanjau is now going to hit 990,000 shillings each, up from 957,000 shillings. You have members of parliament and senators whose current salary is 725,000 will have their pay increased to 739,600 shillings monthly. Governors, their pay salaries has also been adjusted from 957,000 to 990,000. You have MCAs who are receiving 154,000. Now they're going to be getting 164,000. Just looking at that, and I mean, this Gazette notice was issued last year, but the situation is different right now, and Kenyans are not happy with the fiscal state of our country. What will our leaders do right now?
You know, it's only that I think the conversation has started at the right time, even as we get...
What kind of system is this?
Okay, let me ask this. Does that then make you feel like the head of state is somehow doesn't have, is not in touch with what is happening on the ground?
Allow me wrap up my submissions. If that's a government pathologist sent by the government, in presence of the mother who has lost a child, says that this child was shot once, and because of the implications of the bullet into the arteries, he died. Whereas the mother standing there saying that this boy was shot 8 times, and even the dad to that baby said that we are not in agreement with that report. And up to now, no government official has come out to explain whether it was a mismatch or miscommunication. To mean they are comfortable with lying and telling the public things that are not true. Let me finish up. We have Ministry of Youth Affairs in this country. We have Ministry of Health in this country. We have not seen the minister in charge of youth coming out to condemn police brutality on young people. We've not seen the minister of
wastages and spending. He will still tell you, how will that put bread on my table? In short, what these boys need to hear is the same language that he has addressed them prior to the election, whereby he told them, huyu kijana mwenye anauza mahindi karibu na barabara, after the election mimi nikuwa rais, maisha yake itakuja kubadilika hivi. Money will be injected from downwards coming upwards, in the opposite of devolution. These are the kind of issues that these boys were informed. And that is now the kind of mindset. With that mindset, that's why they have elected the president. But now on the question of what they now see and read every day, despite meeting or finding what they expected, is a member of parliament is getting more salaries. MCA is getting salary increment. AG is getting salary increment. This now places them in a situation of desperation. They ask themselves, can we wait up until 2027? They find it to be a very long time. They can't even wait for that particular time to do something about the situation. If we reduce their salaries and the president tells us that he's going to inject some measures that is going to save us some money, he is still making fun of us. Ask yourself one question. Call the hotels in Mombasa. The last 2 weeks, all those hotels have been filled. Do you know why? The ministries are trying to finish up the little that has remained in their pockets. My own clients, some of the county assemblies that I act for, have been clearing my money. I'm being paid actually properly, because I'm told this is the time not to make sure that money goes back to the exchequer. Mm-hmm. They are now on a spending spree. It's like they have a deadline within which they must finish that fund. So many county assemblies, county executive committee members, national government parastatals, all of them are now in beaches and hotels around in Mombasa and Malindi. Mm-hmm. It's because they're now trying to spend to the last coin those particular budgeted amounts for the financial year. Why must you finish that money as a country? Hiyo pesa kwani hatuwezi weka for the following financial year. So if we end up having such mindset, or if we end up thinking of how we can reduce on such wastages, tutakuwa mahali. But for now, the way everything is being run, the way he's handling things, the way he's lying, the way he's still misleading the media, the way he's not being empathetic, we will not get anything right up until the next election. Mm-hmm. But now, you know, it's always good to be a bit optimistic, as Kenyans are always. Mm. He is our president. He has the power in his hand, and he has 3 years to go. There's a lot he can still do. Basic things, simple things that he can do. Some of them being he can get himself some good advisors who can tell him this is not what the youth of this country want. He can get himself proper advice in terms of who is in charge of the State Department of Public Service. Someone somewhere should tell him, gentlemen, this is how things should be. The judiciary keeps on asking for more funds, yes. But now he is supposed to also resonate with them and tell them, guys, this is the situation of our country, we cannot give you more money. That he can only do that if he is not adding more money for the agency.
Kasim, huyo demu amefanya nini? Sijui. Ametolewa nguo. Imagine anaingia kwa wanaume akiwa amefaa vibaya. Ametolewa nguo, aenda akafaa vizuri. Amefaa vibaya. Ni nini amefanya? Nikisi, kadem kametolewa nguo, alikuwa amefaa vibaya na anaonyesha wanaume matako. Wanaume ni gani? Wakawaambia kuja hapa sasa utoe zote. Kametolewa nguo. Madam ukikuja kuandamana faini vizuri. Vijana si wa kujoki. Tiaga si expire. Hapana. Wameenda kuchokozana maskari. I think wameenda kuita maskari wengine.
Uni presidenti gani huyo anapeana authority tupiwe live? Uni presidenti mgani anasema amri tupiwe live? Bana tupiwe live. Na kuna mwingine. Live. Nitakuwa ni wewe. Ndio nini? Nataka kutoka ofisi ande.
Thanks pia wewe pole but I'm just wewe unanipatia pole. Nini imehappen kwangu na nipatia pole. Wamekuja police station kuchokoza. Hata niende ningie police station niwaonyeshe.
Wamekuja hapa Kisii Central nje. Tumeona, niliona, nilishika. Yangu.
Nasema ulikuwa unakulanga ugali lakini siku tunakula mchele unacheki.
Hatutaki Ruto kabisa, Ruto aende nyumbani.
Huku ni kimbi jamani. Walikuja retreat, sasa tena wanarudi wengine. Yawa. Kushoka dayo. Wameenda na huko chini, siwezi wafuata. Sasa turudi na huko chini, angalia wanatokelezea na wapi.
We have had a meeting of the Central Committee of the ODM party. Central Committee is the organ of the party that deals with managerial issues in the party and also issues of policy. We have had a comprehensive meeting today and we have a statement which is going to be read to you by the Secretary General, Honorable Edwin Sifuna.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We proceed straight to the statement of the Central Committee meeting of 2nd July 2024. And it is titled, "This is Kenya's Last Best Chance." The Central Committee of the party has this morning held a meeting to deliberate on the ongoing crisis in Kenya. This meeting is happening at a most difficult time for our country, given all that has happened in the last few weeks. We are acutely aware that many families are still in mourning, having lost their loved ones, with civil society groups estimating that over 30 young Kenyans fell to the regime bullets in the course of the street protests. Many of these families are yet to bury these victims. On behalf of the entire ODM party, the Central Committee extends its deepest condolences to all those who have lost their loved ones and pray that God
police for, and the bosses, the people you've employed, the media, who is the fourth estate, has informed you of mass or unjustified use of force against peaceful protesters, by extension, elimination of lives. And then you rise to read a statement that, pursuant to provisions of Gen Z scrutiny, says it was AI generated. You start congratulating the police for a work well done. Which work was that? Eliminating the lives you are supposed to protect? How will you convince them now that you feel sorry, that you owe to them an apology? At this point in time, no sympathy may really count, because sympathy, personally, I don't like people who sympathize with me. If you can't empathize with me, go away with your sympathy. You need to sympathize, empathize. So these two factors go hand in hand. Even at most, sympathy may not work. I don't think with what is happening, at least if there was standstill of activities, especially from the state side, no deployment of armed police officers, the police can come to the streets unarmed. If in an event that they are overwhelmed, they can call for backup. There is now a justification for use of force. Here you come already armed to the teeth with very dangerous arsenals, tear gas canisters, Whom do you want to tear gas? You come with guns, bullets, you are shooting at demonstrators. Then you, in your mindset, you are executing violence and you expect reciprocation of peace. My friend, we are all human beings. We cannot entertain. So the president and his misadvisors,
there's no room for redeeming him.
There is, I think there is room for every other thing, but the redemption side, rais amechoma CV yake na makaratasi na kila kitu.
Brian, let me just dive into the issue of police slightly. You know, the kind of arrests we've seen also away from the protests, those after protest arrests. I mean, I don't understand. For instance, case study of Alfred Keter. That guy was, if that
call a member of parliament, but the only, now it just says that the parliament will enact the necessary legislation that will be used to govern the process of removal. Again, now, when you look at, I was involved in one of the petitions whereby some were interested in recalling their member. Now, when you look at the Elections Act, sections 45 to 48, it's a very tough process. Because
you identify himself,
covering their faces,
their faces in masks and the hoods should be addressed, should be handled as a police officer, and that's why you find there is so much confrontation and tension between the civilians and the police, because the bile is so much on the people that we know that we are agitating for what is right, but these guys in uniform are just here to contain us. But there is a group somewhere who are not even, and I've just seen some of them here on the screens. They have covered themselves fully, so they just rotated within the town and pounce on you. Let me ask you, if somebody pounced on you, like, because the situation is, right now the situation is so bad, and if somebody pounced on me that way, then I react badly and they lose their lives. Then the government will now start wailing that, oh, the citizens are killing the police officers. Those people should not be classified as police officers, because they are putting the image of the police service
on jeopardy. I call them goods.
And look at these people. Do you think, and I want to tell you, on Tuesday, I was in town, and to some extent I thought there were not going to be mandamanos, until the police officers started throwing tear gas.
No, we were with you.
We were with you,
yes, in the morning.
In fact, we did not even know. We were even asking ourselves, are these Gen Zs may give up in the coast? But a police officer just come from their lorries and start tear gassing a group of people, chanting and doing nothing.
A group of journalists. He ordered the journalists to vacate the street, and I was asking him, do you have the land title deeds of this street? Where do you want them to go? They are doing their job. You do your job. So,
and that was the genesis. That was the genesis of Mandamano.
Okay, let me come to you, Jafet.
For me, I feel there is still room for redemption.
There's still room for redemption. How does he redeem himself?
Stop lying to your president.
For me, I believe so.
No.
President William Samoei Ruto will be the man that I knew and that I decided to campaign for. Remember, I came from a constituency that was predominantly an opposition zone. But I took that risk to believe, because I sat down, listened to his manifesto, we went around, listened to him. If only he can be the man that I know and come down and listen to what Kenyans are saying, he can
redeem himself.
He can redeem himself. Number two, I want him to come down and do exactly what he did during the campaigns. Not send people, not form committees.
Yeah.
I want him to come in these streets.
And I know the place of the NIS, because we're also giving them a lot of budgetary allocations. They must come up with the real-time issues or real-time information that saves our nation when they're supposed to do so. So these are some issues that they can address at their level, and also if that particular allegation that the deputy president has made, then his boss and his team, they need to up their game. It's an important thing. You know, sometimes there's a certain level of criticism that you can take it positively. If Nurdin and his team, they know it, if they know that they have failed and they can do something about it, let them do something about it. If the president knows there is no problem with these two and he may perceive this as a political statement, he can have a sit down with his deputy. But for us as Kenyans, we don't care about some things. We don't have the power to remove the NIS boss. The other way is, what you can do is, ideally, just like someone has done already against him, has filed a petition. I've seen that was done by one of the senior lawyers.
Yesterday.
If you find a certain public official that he's not able to do his constitutional duty or his statutory duty, you have the leeway to take him to court. So the court can compel him to do certain jobs. And always when you file a petition against a public office holder, that puts them in trouble. I can tell you that from experience. Bring out all your facts, a court of law will have a look at it. If there's a need to even summon him physically or personally, the court will be able to give the audience to both sides.
And
so
what would be the risk of our politicians sort of politicizing this particular matter, and we sort of, you know,
it's really dangerous. It's really, because NIS goes to how the security system of our country operates, from the borders to how we tackle terrorism within and both in and outside our country, to so many things, to even the youth who are protesting. These are the people who advise the president. But now, the NIS boss does not advise him as such, he advises the president. If he finds a problem in terms of the kind of advices that the president is being given, why can't he have that discussion with the president? That's the reality. If there's a problem with the NIS boss, you are the deputy president, there are certain political issues that can be done. Do you know how? Our parliament, you have given them a lot of powers. One of the members of parliament can actually invite the NIS boss to parliament and ask him these questions. He can be asked, what have you done about this? Did you properly advise the president? There are certain democratic or better or mature ways of addressing this than going to Mombasa, calling the media and telling them that this whole problem that is happening in the country, this is the problem. And also, for the people of Northeastern, again, I've seen some leaders who are now trying to address the media and telling the deputy president off. It should not go to that point. When the gentleman who is now heading the NIS, he's heading the NIS advocate at the national level function. He's no longer representing the people of Garissa or Wajir or Mandera. He's there because of his position as a Kenyan or his competence or his qualification. So also this Mtwetu syndrome, which we come up with, that we end up attacking politically the other party, should not be there. But I think as I'll go back to telling you this, that the central person who can address everything today is our president. Even the question of the allegations that have been leveled against the NIS boss, who has leveled those allegations against it is his personal assistant, literally the deputy president. He can call both of them, have an office meeting with them, read the Riots Act and tell them, guys, you are here to work with me, not to address media conferences. So this again, this is a pointer to how his system.
The convection of rainfall from Lake Victoria, it was too huge. So we going forward must always remember that the sovereignty of the people and the supremacy of the Constitution is out of question. We, through this protest, have realized that this is the opportune time to ration the salaries of the MPs and people who are out of public coffers, so that we do not go forward ballooning the already ballooned wage bill at the expense of service delivery. Today, we use 46% of our GDP to pay what? Salaries. We are using 46. It should be 35. Out of the 100 shillings we are collecting for revenue, we are spending at least, out of 10 shillings, we are spending 7 or 8 shillings to pay for the debts. So going forward, the protest has reminded us that even if the executive, parliament has been captured by the executive and the executive captured by IMF, we can actually go for the big fish and capture IMF. Okay,
let me come to you in terms of looking at what has transpired in the past few weeks and moving forward, in terms of how will the future of this nation look like, and what percentage of it will have been shaped by what we've experienced in the past few weeks?
First, I would like to make it clear that, and I said this before, that in 2027, we are going to have a serious uprise of young people at the ballot, either voting or contesting. Take it from me and put it in the bank. And that will change the dynamics of this country. Because what is happening today might not, it might not fade people's minds by 2027. Because we've seen this. And do you know that as we talk right now, the East African community has communicated, and the cost of oil is going to go up. Double what we have today. That's the status we have right now. The cost of cooking oil diapers and pampers that we are talking about here are going to go up as per the East African community. And that thing, if you read through that thread, it is the Kenyan government that applied for such measures. So that if the finance bill collapses, they have other ways. We will meet with them at the right time. Back to the question. The protest that we've seen is an organic process, not led by anybody, not political, and not tribal. That tells you that you, Branham Mwai, the grandson of Nabongo Mumia, you can go and contest in Kapsaret in 2027. Provided that you have an agenda, you can be an MP there. That's what that's the dynamics of politics that we are going to have going forward.
So a tribe-based kind of political environment. A
tribe-based kind of politics, issue-based politics, agenda-based politics. That's why if my brother is saying that the Muindi guy must go home in Kisumu East, I don't have any problem. And let me tell you, as a young people, we are going, and that is what we are doing. That's why you see this thing is not mobilized from anywhere. People are just coming out. This is a youth agenda. It's a youth-centric thing. We are going to vote young leaders by virtue of them being young. Leave alone the agenda.
How do you maintain momentum?
Because I tend to disagree
I believe we come from a
voting young people.
Let me justify. Let me quantify.
We need sobriety in leadership.
Osoro
is young. Kimani Ichung'wah was just walking in 2-8 taking selfies. I mean, some very funny looking photos in the streets of Kiambu. He was young.
I have not finished. I have not finished. I'm saying we are going to elect young people. One, they are young. Two, like I said earlier, agenda. That's why I said, if you have an agenda and a proper manifesto, and you are visionary and an energetic person, young person, who can move this country forward. So we can elect you in Kapsaret, we can elect you in Kikuyu, and take back that guy who's in the
Do you think we need to cap the age at which some people can actually vie for political office? Because let me finish this. This is a young generation, right?
Yes.
It will get into elective politics. You'll be elected, you will go into the house, but 20 years down the line, you'll still be there. And you'll be fighting to still retain your seats. So do we then say, okay, at this particular point, moving forward, should we have a cap and say the population of this nation can only be represented by people of this particular age? Once you're this, kindly get out.
I think it will be unconstitutional to cap it on age and look at it in this angle. I am young, I am elected, and maybe we cap it at, let's say, the age of 40 and below. So I am elected, I'm going to sit there pretty well doing nothing, knowing that at the end of the day, even if I hit 41 and above, there is nothing they will do. What we can do is to limit the term of an MP. Imagine Shakil Shabir has been my MP since I was in class 4, I mean class 3. That was way back, I don't know, in 2 or 4 or whatever. Since I was very young, the guy has been sitting in the August house, missing and protesting in airport. So, I mean at the airport. So you can imagine the MP I have. So why don't we just come up with a law as the people of Kenya to limit an MP's term to a one-term MP so that we have people deliver, and within this one term, we also provide very strict and implementable strategies of recall so that we have accountable leadership.
Yeah, let me just chip in before you ask another question. And
let me go to Jeff.
Let me disagree with the incoming member.
I'll give you an opportunity.
This guy.
No, I'll give you an opportunity. Just a moment. Please. Just a moment.
Okay.
Kindly.
You know, Brian, I think what you can do is to limit the term. But when it comes to age, it's not a war between the old and the young.
But this is the thing. You limit the term, and yet we've had conversations around term limits in this country just recently before all these protests were actually happening.
There are term limits in
no, just listen. What the elected officials were actually saying is that 2 terms, even for a president, is not enough. If you limit the term of a member of parliament to represent you, to one term, they'll argue it is not enough to be able to...
You know, the elected leaders that you're talking about are the same leaders that you're discussing on recalling. You know, the reason why they want extra terms, they want more years in power is because of the greed that they're having. A true and good leader can change his area of jurisdiction within a very short time. If they can only understand
what am I saying
their role.
The streets? It is very wrong. These policemen, all these...
Okay, wait.
If only they can understand.
Commentary is my job. Sankara. Commentary on whatever is happening on the street is my job. Okay, Japhet?
If only they can understand their role and do exactly what they were elected to do. 2 terms are enough. President Ruto served for Uhuru served for 2 terms. President Kibaki served for the 2 terms, and we saw what they did.
There's no government.
Talking about
of course, just a moment, the picture that you've been seeing on your screen, of course, you're seeing Kenyans there with what we call rungus, of course. I think that was the photo before. It's somehow getting my guests all agitated. I don't know why. Okay, let's get back to you, Japheth.
Brian, if you can get the right leadership, if you can get the right people in power, that's our problem.
Okay.
It's not about the age, it's about having the right people. And that's why you are telling the president you appointed the wrong people. You got the wrong people into leadership. You appointed the wrong cabinet. I remember, I think it's a year after his election, when he was talking to his people, the people that he had appointed to different parastatals. You remember him saying, I've even come to notice some of you don't even understand your roles.
Yeah.
So that one can only tell you that he knows the problem that is in his government. What he needs to do is to come out and make sure he changes where change is required. By so doing and listening to what the young people are telling him, he will redeem himself.
Okay. My next question will be in issues to do with because one of the things that has actually come out in this particular protest and the demands that have been put forward is the issue of budgeted corruption, where you say, okay, there are offices that we need to actually be scrapped. Now, I know we've mentioned this in passing as we were continuing with our conversation, but I'd like us to get into the details of that and how looking at that is going to solve the issue of, a proper budget first, and also just getting to finance some of the key issues and the key ministries that will be that are very center when it comes to the functionality of the country. Let me start with you, Ken.
Thank you. Brian, if we have many unconstitutional offices in place, and the biggest issue we have is these offices are funded from the exchequer. That if you talk of maybe PCS, Prime Cabinet Secretary, the office holder is also the Minister for Foreign Affairs. Why can't we just have a constitutional office which is Minister for Foreign Affairs?
Okay.
Get that? Because if you look at this office, it's budgeted for in billions of money. Get that? Down from that, we have the office now of the spouse. Away from that, we have the spouse of the deputy president. These are not offices articulated within the Constitution 2010, as we envisioned the devolution. If we scrap off these offices and divert those cash that are being put in these offices to development, I want to tell you we are going to save a lot of money. We talked of CAS. Maintaining those CAS could have costed us many millions of money. But now the president put himself forward and said he's going to stop it and put it aside. I think he needs to step forward and scrap off office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, office of the spouse, the 3 spouses, because each and every office has a budget. And then this issue of renovation left, renovation right, what are we renovating? How do we renovate a house worth 400 million with 600 million? 600, you get that, the figures. It doesn't make sense. We need to cut this cost, we need to cut these expenditures, and then going to Parliament, it is high time that we revise the salaries of members of Parliament. Get that? So that we can have a cap for that salary.
What would you propose? What would you propose?
Because this guy.
I saw Millie Odhiambo saying we can reduce it to 200,000.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Let them put it even at 300, and then erase or put away all these many allowances that they are enjoying. Okay, and a member of Parliament, I think a member of Parliament should be entitled to an allowance, travel allowance, on official duty, maybe out of this country. Okay. Because if you're going to your constituency to do your constitutional mandate as enshrined by the people, I don't think there's only of you being given an allowance to go to a constituency.
And then, on that official travel, why would I pay an MP from the Kenyan Parliament to go and benchmark an activity in Rwanda that Rwandese claim that the policy was sought from Kenya. Like the policy, the dairy farming. We had a bunch of MPs who left Nairobi for Kigali. They went to benchmark to see how dairy business is done in Rwanda, only to be reminded by the authorities in Rwanda that the policy in place was actually borrowed from your country. So that do not still justify responsible spending. Fiscal discipline, very important.
Yeah.
I think I have told the president everything that he wants to hear. Maybe what I would advise the entire government is to start doing the opposite. At least for the first time, do not do the same thing every time and expect a different result. Let us do new things in a different way, then get different results. But what I know, whatever it is that is happening in Kenya today, is a revelation of this statement that you can lie to some people sometime, and sometimes some of the people, but not all the people all the time. The president actually set himself on fire. He incited the people of Kenya through their problems against the existing, the previous administration, where he served as the second in command, and by extension an isolation of the deputy president and opposition leader. Now it is time to only promise what you can achieve. Cut your coat according to your size. Do not go on top of roof cars and start telling the people, hawa watu hawajui kile wanatufanyia kwa kuongeza bei ya mafuta, kwa kuongeza bei ya fertilizer, kwa kuongeza bei ya nini. And then you get into office and you start doing the exact opposite. But so going forward, we want accountable leadership. I will always say that the moment we start being accountable, we will have a solution as a country. The moment we start reducing on unnecessary state expenses, look at our recurrent expenditure. We are using a huge balance of that budget on paying, of our budget on paying salaries. So we are paying salaries for counties and people who do not deliver. If service delivery was something to go by, overtaxation is not a new policy. It has worked in other parts of the world where citizens are extremely taxed, but the services they get are just top-notch. The roads have no dimples like we have in Nairobi. You get sick, an ambulance will flash. I'm not saying will come, will flash to your place and take you to an hospital where you will receive an emergency medical treatment. Come to Kenya. You are sick, you go to an hospital, they tell you, this is an emergency medical service, they tell you, you have to pay some money because the systems are not working. Can we restart the engine? Can we press 1 to reset the engine? Because pressing 1 is just invoking provisions of Article 1, the sovereignty of the people. Press 1 to redeem the engine so that we have a country where, regardless of where I am, I feel safe. The deputy president promised during elections that the police were going to escort drunk people home. What I'm seeing in the streets of today are not police escorting people home, but they are police escorting people to their graves.
Those ones are not drunk.
And
so you can imagine the drunk.
These are not drunk people. If I don't forget, Ken, you're distracting me. If I don't forget, they promised us a scenario where the police were going to escort drunk people home. At least we are not seeing the people drunk. Why are they being escorted to the graves? We have seen youths only being targeted as violent prisoners, criminals. But in the same instances, we've seen police officers escorting injured televisions to unknown destinations.
When he says we were promised by the deputy president,
we were promised
I thought he was going to mention the people of Kenya are promised to go eat mchele na nyama. That's beside the point. Now, let me come to you. All these recommendations look good. Yeah. At some extent, they look, when you tell that to someone, they look like they can be done. But let's talk about the goodwill. That is because it requires political goodwill to actually get to achieve this. If we say we want to reduce the salaries of the members of parliament so that because we don't want to be spending so much on recurrent expenditure and all that and paying salaries, a big chunk of your budget going into that. What would be the best rationale to go about this? Because even the same MPs will not, to some extent, agree to this?
You know, Brian, sometimes it becomes so difficult to answer such questions because of the reason why we are in the streets. The political goodwill, the leadership itself, the readiness, in those who are in government to listen to whatever that you are telling them. Imagine if they were to listen to what the young people are telling them the first day the demonstrations began. You wouldn't be here seeing what is happening in Nairobi CBD currently. The problem is that we've been having leaders who are not ready to listen. Generally, we have a system that is corrupt, a system that has been curtailed, a system that is rotten. And that's why we are telling the president, listen, it's time you come and listen to us. I've told you I'm speaking as an insider in the UDA party, a party that, the president's party. We've got people who are not listening to what people want to tell the president. There's a certain kind of arrogance that you're seeing in people surrounding the president.
Okay.
What the president must do, number one, he has to reshuffle his cabinet and get the right people. Number two, he has to go to parliament and replace leadership in the parliament.
And the police, as demonstrators barricaded that busy Nairobi Karatina road. We do understand that police have exhausted their tear gas and have retreated, and only KDF vehicles have been allowed to use that road. So that is the current situation right now. When we come back to the CBD, here in the Central Business District, the police is still engaging protesters in running battles as they try and form a crowd. So the police are lobbing tear gas at the protesters who are trying to form a crowd or a gathering here in Nairobi. And away from that, we'll also perhaps get pictures of what is happening in Kangemi or along the Waiyaki Way, where the Nairobi police boss Adamson Bungei is also leading the reinforcement of GSU police officers, where protesters managed to push back the police away from the Kangemi flyover. That is exactly what we saw earlier on happening. And this is following the hashtag Occupy Everywhere protests that were pushed. We've seen happening from protesters. I beg your pardon, protesters, business district, by the way. It's a tale of two Nairobi. Many shops are closed and it's characterized by sparse human and car traffic activity, and a lot is happening there. So we're going to be showing a number of things we've spoken about the state of the economy. You are a young person and you're seeing everything that is happening. Why? Whoever is watching, including our leaders, what is your...
How do we leave it for the future generations? We must learn to accommodate one another. We must learn to have conversations with other Kenyans to own property and to be able to move around with their liberties freely. On top of that, I would like to call for all of us to unite. We must love each other and we must love this country more than anything else. Kenya must always triumph. And to our leaders, and especially our central leader, our president, you have a heavy cross to carry in terms of leading this country. You must be the first man to say that I am sorry. You must take responsibility for this country. you must show goodwill to Kenyans, and you must show responsibility to the people around you. That's it.
All right. Suleiman, your final thoughts?
I think what I'll say is it's a watch and see as to how things will be turning out going forward in the next few days. But one thing that is a bit clear to me is that today the level of damage is lower, much lower than what we have seen the last few days, especially last week Tuesday. It's a bit commendable on the part of both the protesters, the people of Kenya, and the security apparatus, because I think the more we minimize the damage that is felt and the lives that are lost, it's a win for us. In terms of going forward, we look forward to a scenario whereby the protesters and the president or the executive as such will be able to have a discussion around all the issues they're talking about. I look forward to a week that will end possibly without what we can see today. A week that will allow us to go back to our jobs. A week that will allow our youths to have a rest so that they do not endanger their lives or get injured as such. But most importantly, I look forward to the president giving them an opportunity.
Of protesters who are disguised as part of those who are protesting, but with the main intent of robbing their businesses. And so many counted losses in their millions and hundreds of thousands from their stock being stolen. We had some shops that sell mobile phones that were robbed. We have others that sell ordinary clothes for the public, and those as well were robbed without being spared. And so today what we've witnessed is the businessmen right here, as you can see, some of them were organized and into several groups, mostly manning the businesses, manning the buildings in which they're working in, just to ensure that no one makes their way into these businesses. Also, we've also witnessed vandalism to a high degree. I can only relate these to what we were witnessing during the Raila Odinga time, the protests led by Azimio la Umoja, not everywhere, but particularly in the areas of Mathare and Kibra, where people would come out ready to vandalize whatever they would land their hands on, regardless of the consequences of that. And so we have some of the businesses, including one of a shoe shine located right here at Odeon, was burnt down as we watched. Some of those kiosks that are placed along this street, that is Tomboya Street, were also torched and put down on the street. We also witnessed something unique that we've not witnessed in this protest for the last 2 weeks. That is the burning of tires, closing of roads, and these demonstrators seriously attacking police officers. One of our colleagues happened to be found in the line of fire, that is Joel Chacha, and in the process we went to take him to the hospital, where we found 2 more police officers who were receiving treatment, having been injured in the process. And what pictures coming to you are what describe or paint a picture of what happened earlier on. Whatever you're seeing here is a remnant of a burnt tire. This is what was closing this road earlier on. And probably just to get to have a look at this piece of business, where we always have young people, men and women, rise up early in the morning and polish and clean shoes for people. However, it has found itself victim of the wrath of the protesters who were right here wreaking havoc within the CBD, and all is left is a metallic frame, since they could not access inside of it. And looking at the other street now, you can see what a mess it has been the entire day, even as police officers tried their best to contain those who were within the CBD. Remember, Arelon, the Malindi Law Court on 4 days ago issued directives temporarily halting the use of tear gas canisters, rubber bullets, as well as water cannons against peaceful demonstrators. But from the conduct of demonstrators and protesters right here in Nairobi's CBD, police officers have resulted in doing that. Not very sure on what metrics that will be argued, whether they've done it in accordance to the law, whether they've disobeyed the court order. But for real, fact is, those tear gas canisters have been used to disperse protesters. They've had their rubber bullets trying to disperse the protesters. Water cannons have been used right here, trying to contain the huge number of protesters, mostly young people, like the person passing right now. Very young people, a very young composition of demonstrators, mostly for those we've spoken to. Some have told us they've come all the way from Kariobangi to the CBD, and asking the motivation, some were not particularly clear on what was pushing them to that decision. And sites right here. Remember, Arelon, the Malindi Law Court on 4 days ago issued directives temporarily halting the use of tear gas canisters, rubber bullets, as well as water cannons against peaceful demonstrators. But from the conduct of demonstrators and protesters right here in Nairobi's CBD, police officers have resulted in doing that. Not very sure on what metrics that will be argued, whether they've done it in accordance to the law, whether they've disobeyed the court order. But for real, fact is, those tear gas canisters have been used to disperse protesters. They've had their rubber bullets trying to disperse the protesters. Water cannons have been used right here, trying to contain the huge number of protesters, mostly young people, like the person passing right now. Very young people, a very young composition of demonstrators, mostly for those we've spoken to. Some have told us they've come all the way from Kariobangi to the CBD, and asking the motivation, some were not particularly clear on what was pushing them to that decision. And sites right here are those of businessmen continuing to patrol the city around their businesses, ensuring that we do not have numbers accumulating around their businesses. What you can see right now, right there, is a clear profile of who were demonstrating today within the CBD. Remember, among the things that were informing this protest were the rejection of the finance bill, which was ongoing, that is rejecting Finance Bill 2024. And in an attempt to quell it, the president was pushed to a point where he had to withdraw the bill, and even in totality, withdraw it in totality. And questioned on the repercussions of that, the president has been clear that the country will have to deal with the repercussions of the government's decision to withdraw finance bill from parliament from being passed. And something else that was also in the bill was a number of issues. Youths complaining, saying that the wage bill of the country is a bit high. Over 40% of the country's income being used to pay wage bills instead of the recommended 35%, appearing to irk the youth, and who have recommended a number of issues and suggestions as to how the government can adapt to meet its metrics later. And also in the recommendations were to cut down on the expenditure by reducing the salary of the members of parliament. And I have a very rowdy crowd behind me right here, and so we'll just try and mitigate it, see if we can get away from them. If we can't, we just have to speak to a few of them to calm them down. But we're headed towards where police officers are for calm. And just to see, most of the streets here are usually busy. This street here, called Cabral Street, that neighbors in Menti, usually is a very busy stage. We also have matatus, most matatus plying Thika Road as well as Wayaki Way. They make their turn around this junction right here. And right now it is deserted in totality. People who are passing here are on foot, and we also have just a few guys passing here on foot, others on motorbikes, some on their private cars, but matatus on the street have not been seen for quite some time. Indeed, the calm has returned for sure after the situation of vandalism, and that right there, police officers are using the tear gas canister to disperse the crowd that had overwhelmed us before we came to this direction. We've also had a number of people who've been injured, mainly police officers. We've also had a number of journalists sustaining some minor injuries, some from the stones being pelted by the protesters, and some as a result of the tear gas canisters that have exploded close to them. But comparing what we are currently witnessing now and what was currently, what has been there for the better part of the day, indeed, calm has been we are witnessing calm, and what we are having right now is just police officers trying to wrap up the day by pushing off those protesters who are continuing to make attempts to access the CBD. But for the better part of the day, most of them have not managed to cross Moi Avenue into the other streets of the town. And so police have managed to some extent to contain the numbers on the lower sides of the town. However, it is also not very clear whether protesters had a destination on the upper side of the town. But most of them, as we have mentioned earlier, were targeting to a good number of them were targeting to loot and rob the businesses on this side of town. And we will continue following up on whatever is happening in this part of town, and also ensuring that our viewers are not left behind on what is transpiring following these demonstrations that kicked off 2 weeks ago in the bid to push for the dropping of the finance bill in totality. Hashtag reject finance bill. On Tuesday, they had a hashtag Occupy Parliament, which they did and occupied successfully. Now you'll allow me to take it back to you in studio, where we'll be joining Milia Kisenya. Thank you very much, Milia. Hivyo ndo hali ilivyo kwa sasa, na tumeweza kumpasha mtazamaji yaliyojiri mchana kutwa hadi kufikia majira ya sasa, ambapo kumeonekana kuwa na hali ya utulivu. Lakini ni ruhusu kwa sasa nirejeshe kwako studioni.
Na asante sana Kagina, unahitaji kopo la maji kwa kutupatia tu, ikiwa ni taswira kamili kufikia sasa. Na ni jiji la Nairobi, ambapo katika takriban saa, mpenzi mtazamaji, kutoka majira ya asubuhi hadi kufikia sasa imekuwa tu mbio za mguu ni ponye. Imekuwa tu ni majeneza zaidi ya 6 yakionekana tu yamemwagwa katika barabara ya Moi